Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Anne-Marie, and today I'm going to discuss the 10 Things I Love About You, The Heiress by Rachel Hawkins. This is a no spoilers book review, so don't worry about me revealing any plot twists or spoiling any surprise endings. The whole point of this is to give you an inside peek into the book. So here we go. The Heiress is a story about the richest woman in North Carolina, Ruby McTavish Callahan Woodward Miller Kenmore. The reason she has so many surnames is because she was married 4 times. Upon her death, Ruby leaves her fortune to her adopted son, Camden. He and Jules, his wife of 10 years, leave their modest home in Colorado and travel to North Carolina to handle the massive estate known as Ashby House. While they are there, questions about the infamous heiress come to light. For example, why did all 4 of her husbands die under mysterious circumstances? What compelled her to adopt Camden? And finally, is there any truth to the rumors regarding Ruby's disappearance as a young girl? When she was 3 years old, she vanished from a family picnic in the mountains surrounding their home. Although she was found 8 months later living with another family, rumors regarding the incident still trouble the surviving McTavishes. The first thing I love about The Heiress is the way the story is told. The chapters alternate between Jules and Camden, who are telling the story as it's currently unfolding. In addition to their accounts, Ruby tells her story from letters she wrote prior to her death. Furthermore, throughout the book there are newspaper articles, magazine articles, newsletters, personal letters, and even a couple of emails sprinkled in to help the reader understand what is happening. For those of you who have read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, The Heiress reminded me a little bit of that in its construction. The second thing I love about The Heiress is Jules. When the book starts, she is working at a living history museum, playing the part of a farmer's wife who churns butter while telling school groups and tourists about hardships on the western frontier. In chapter 11, we learn that she grew up in a trailer park in Panama City, Florida. She explains that she and Camden are perfect for each other because despite her past, he makes her feel like she's every bit as shiny and good as he is. After Camden and Jules spend a few days at Ashby House, Camden acknowledges how Jules is content spending hours curled up in a chair on the veranda, just taking in the views. Given her meager beginnings, she appreciates things that other characters in the book take for granted. She's simple, but in this book, that's what makes her extraordinary. You'll understand why as I make my way through the list. Number 3 on my list is Camden. He's the perfect match for Jules. Once known as the luckiest boy in North Carolina, Camden left behind his mansion and his bank account with nearly $100 million in it, and instead chose a modest lifestyle without relying on Ruby's family money to make it in life. When the book begins, Camden is working as an English teacher at an all-boys prep school. This is a man who has inherited a massive estate and $100 million. Yet happiness for him is watching the love of his life paint her toenails. He acknowledges how content he feels in his wife's presence. It's something money cannot buy. Camden is a good person who treasures the simple things in life, and that's what makes his character extraordinary. Number 4 on my list are the 3 characters currently living in Ashby House: Nellie, Ben, and Libby. Nellie is Camden's aunt. Ben and Libby are Nellie's grandchildren. The 3 of them live in Ashby House because even though Camden is the legal owner of the property, the will states that Ruby's sister, Nellie, and her family can live there for as long as they want. These are the kind of characters you love to hate. They provide the contrast to Jules and Camden by being hateful, selfish, cruel, manipulative, and downright toxic. This is why Camden doesn't want anything to do with them. This is why he moved across the country to start a new life away from Ashby House and everyone living inside it. The 5th thing I love about The Heiress is Ashby House. Built in 1904, Ashby House is a 20,000 square foot, 15-bedroom, gray stone mansion high in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. Surrounded by pines, oaks, and chestnut trees, the estate features peaked roofs, leaded windows, and marble patios. In Chapter 2, Camden describes it as a crucible and a fishbowl all at once. The sort of place where, despite all the rooms and the endless square footage, it was like you were never alone. There was always someone watching, always someone listening. He also says that if you stay there long enough, you forget there's a world outside its tall doors, its oversized windows, and shadowed lawns. It swallows everyone eventually. In Chapter 8, Camden compares growing up in Ashby House to starring in his own personal version of the Hunger Games every day. On the other hand, having never lived there, seeing Ashby House for the first time takes Jules' breath away. In Chapter 5, she describes it as a fortress on a mountain, made of thick gray stone and tall windows, surrounded by trees on 3 sides, and behind the house, nothing but treetops and clouds and sky. 2 very different perspectives from a husband and a wife with 2 very different backgrounds. Number 6 on my list is the word contentment. In Chapter 7, Jules considers contentment in the following way. As I sit in an Adirondack chair on my first morning at Ashby House, hands curled around a steaming mug, the mountains sloping down into treetops in front of me, I feel a kind of contentment I hadn't known existed. The quiet wraps itself around me like a cozy quilt, the soft gray of the sky giving way to a hazy blue as the sun begins to burn off the mist. And I want to start every day of my life like this, serenely gazing out at this view. In Chapter 15, Camden watches Jules inside Ashby House and thinks this about his wife. Jules is still sitting on the floor, her legs twisted to one side, her eyes wide and a pale face. Her legs and feet are bare, her toenails turquoise. I flash back to her painting them in the bathroom of our little house in Golden, singing softly to herself as I lay in our bed and watched her. Warmth in my chest, contentment in my bones. Once again, both Jules and Camden find contentment in the simple things in life. The 7th thing I love about The Heiress is how author Rachel Hawkins tied her previous book to this one. Between chapters 10 and 11, there is a magazine article titled Ooh La La Libby. That article mentions Laura Larchmont's Aestas album. This is a nod to The Villa, also written by Rachel Hawkins. Laura Larchmont is a character in that book whose inspiration for the Aestas album came from the summer she spent at the Villa. Like an Easter egg hidden in the pages for readers to find, I think it was a clever way to tie her previous book to this one. Number 8 on my list is Andrew. Andrew Miller was Ruby's 3rd husband. He was a painter known for his relaxed, natural portraits. Ruby met him in a castle in the Scottish Highlands while visiting a friend. In one of her letters, Ruby claimed that Andrew understood people, which is what made him such a brilliant portrait artist. He made people interesting because he recognized something in them that no one else could. Not surprisingly, Andrew ended up painting Ruby's portrait that hangs at the top of the stairs in Ashby House. The 2 of them were married for 10 years, and Ruby claims those were the happiest 10 years of her life. One of my favorite images from the book is when Ruby describes being curled up on the sofa in the den with Andrew, watching the fire crackle in the fireplace. This is found in Ruby's letter located between chapters 11 and 12. It was January, a wet mix of sleet and snow pattering against the windows. Andrew had one arm around me, idly stroking my hair, the other holding a book, one of those spy thrillers he always loved. I didn't want him to lift his other hand from my hair, so every once in a while he would murmur, "Turn," and I'd reach up and turn the page for him. Both of us amused every time, him joking that who would have thought a poor Yorkshire lad would one day have the lady of the manor flipping pages of a book for him. She then goes on to say that this is the moment where she would want to spend eternity. Andrew's hand on her hair, the fire before them, the snow outside, the crackle of pages turning, and his soft chuckle in her ear. Number 9 on my list is Ruby's portrait. It hangs at the top of the stairs at Ashby House, massive in its gilt frame. Ruby wasn't quite 30 when Andrew painted it. In the painting, her dark hair is loose around her shoulders, and she's wearing an emerald green evening gown as she perches on the arm of an antique chair. Her smile is described as faint but genuine. Ruby's portrait in its gilt frame contains a secret that isn't revealed until the epilogue. I think a discussion of this final twist would be great for a book club because it's very complicated. How one decision, even if it's made with good intentions, can affect so many lives. And that brings me to the final thing on my list, which is actually the thing I love most about this book, and that's Jules and Camden's relationship. Jules and Camden met at a college bar when she was 21 and he was just barely 22. It was 25-cent wing night and he was the bartender. She ordered water because she couldn't afford wings and a beer, but he gave her a beer on the house, and that sealed the deal for her. They quickly fell in love. In Chapter 5, Jules admits that she had never been in love before Camden, and that she married the love of her life. In Chapter 6, Camden thinks about how he always thought there was something about Ashby House that poisoned everyone in it, eventually turning the good to rot. But he goes on to say that there's too much sunshine in Jules for that to happen to her. Camden escaped his past and built a new life with his wife. Despite being worth more than $100 million, neither one of them acts entitled, because money does not come first in their relationship. In Chapter 7, Jules discloses that when her job wanted her to list a second emergency contact after her husband, she left it blank because she didn't have anyone else to list. When she mentioned this to Camden, she learned that he had done the same thing on his forms at work. Why? Because they only have each other. In Chapter 17, Camden says that Jules is his family. Jules, who sees the darkest parts of me, the worst thing I ever did, and loves me anyway. Just like I see the darkest parts of her, the worst thing she's ever done, and love her too. They respect each other, despite both having secrets, but they understand why each has secrets, and they are okay with that. Their marriage is solid. These characters aren't without faults, but no matter what they endure, they remain faithful to each other. And that's why I love this book as much as I do. Earlier I mentioned how Rachel Hawkins is also the author of The Villa. This book is about two friends who travel to Italy to spend the summer at a villa with a complicated history. This is a story within a story set across two time periods, one in present day and then one from the 70s, both of which revolve around jealousy, lust, greed, and ultimately tragedy. Reckless Girls is about 6 young adults who travel to an abandoned island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I could not put this book down. It kept me on the edge of my seat wondering who, if anyone, was going to survive. The Wife Upstairs is a modern reimagining of Jane Eyre. It's suspenseful and creepy, and in my opinion, it reads a little bit like VERITY by Colleen Hoover. So if you like that book, I think you will like this one as well. If you've read any of these books and love them as much as I do, please feel free to comment. Until next time, take care, be well, and happy reading.